Hello, everyone. This is Matt Hoots with Rate It Green, and we're going to talk about something exciting today. We're going to talk about humidity. And if you're in the South, that means, oh my goodness, like it's not the heat, it's the humidity. And if you're up north, especially during the wintertime, it's like, you know what? I need a little bit more of that humidity in my house because I can't breathe because it's so low and I'm sick. So I've got an expert here, and we're going to talk about whole house humidity control, and that's dehumidification and humidification. So Joseph with Aprilaire is going to explain to us how their system works and why this is important. All right, thanks for joining us today, Joseph.
Thank you. I'm up here in South Central Wisconsin. It is 4 degrees today.
Ooh,
So I'm definitely on the we need humidity in the air side of the equation. However, I do live in one of the states where we also have to dehumidify in the summer. So, there's
wow.
some of us who unfortunately need to utilize both of these solutions from time to time, and they're incredibly important. So I'm glad you got me on to talk about that today. When we talk about humidity in the home, we're talking about relative humidity, the amount of water vapor that's in the air. And it's expressed as it's generally expressed as a percent, and that's how we measure it in the home. I think most homeowners, if they have a humidifier, they're certainly aware, that's how it's read on the humidistat is through a percent, but we might not understand exactly what that means and why it's important. One thing to relate it to is much like temperature. Humidity's actually got a zone, so a lot of these other attributes of IAQ, it's kind of like we know that we want to get as close to zero particulate as possible, or as close to a full air change as we can. With humidity, we're actually trying to find this kind of gap in the middle that's just perfect, because if we're too low or we're too high, we have issues on both ends of that. So you don't want to just crank humidity up, and you don't want to just take all of it away. So as I say, like temperature, it's got a very optimal range for comfort, for human comfort, human health, and also the preservation of the home. Humidity actually plays a role in that. Wood, much like people, does not appreciate being overly saturated or too dry. And if you do both of those to it in 1 year, you particularly can cause damage. I'm sure anyone in the building industry has probably seen that, unfortunately, with a wood floor from time to time, or maybe some molding, or, and we all know about doors that stick in the summer and not in the winter.
Yep.
That's all humidity. That's what you're seeing there. So, but as far as that range, and we got an ASHRAE chart that we'll put up here. It's Matt and I've talked before. It's a little complicated, but I'm going to walk you through it here. You'll see that on these sort of teeth-looking things on each side show you the amount of those different either particulate or bacteria, viruses, fungi that tend to raise as you get to one side or the other of this healthy zone here that you'll see in the middle. So bacteria, they like conditions that are dry. They also like conditions that are moist. Viruses, some of them, there's things about them that make them more infective in a dry environment, and there's things that are also beneficial to them in a moist environment. So if we can stay in that middle range there, that's kind of where we can keep all of these things at bay on both their high ends and their low ends. And it might, if you can't see it, it's between about 30 to 60% is the ASHRAE recommendation. We like to go a little bit tighter and say 40 to 50 is probably more where you're going to want to be, to really maintain that health. And as you can see, that's where you've got everything pretty much in the lowest level there. And, the good news is it's possible to stay within that band there with the solutions that are available to us now. So let's start with air that's too dry. So that would be air that you need to humidify. We see that most commonly, as Matt pointed out, in the north, and particularly during the heating season.
Yeah.
So in a colder climate, as you're heating that air, you change how much moisture it can hold. And if you're not adding moisture to the air, then that percent goes down, and that's what makes us feel dry. And the dryness impact on the body is things like bloody nose, itchy skin, itchy eyes, all the things we're familiar with in the winter. Static shock, believe it or not, static shock is actually one of the most searched terms when people are looking for a humidifier. I've never thought it was the most uncomfortable, but I guess it is. So it just shows the level of impact that has on our body. And the way we control that again is just adding that moisture. And there's a few different ways to do it. You can use what we call an evaporative humidifier, which is kind of a wick where water goes onto that, and then through your forced air system, it collects that water as it comes back up, and it increases the percent of moisture that's in the air. It's honestly a fairly simplistic system, but it's fairly effective, and it's whole house, which is the best part of it. So, instead of having multiple portable units throughout a house that need to be refilled, and when they run out of water they turn off and they stop working, whole house humidification systems are plumbed directly to the home water supply.
Wow.
So there's really nothing to do. The only thing you need to change in those ones from time to time is the water panel itself, the element that gets wet. However, if you change that once a season, you'll be good. In some cases you can do it less than that. And again, that's once a year versus probably once a day if you're trying to get enough humidification using portables. Not to say portables don't have their place. Again, I'm not trying to say that portables are ineffective. They're very effective if they're the only solution that you can use. Maybe you're in a small apartment, or you live somewhere where you don't have the option to put whole house in. Definitely do something to control your humidity. But if whole house control of it is an option, you should definitely consider it. Other product for that is steam humidification. And that's a little bit different. That's where water is going to go into a canister, and there's 2 electrodes in there that essentially heat that up and make steam, and it's put into the duct or it's put into the air. There's obviously care taken into how it's dispersed so that it's, of course, absorbed. We're not just going to blow steam, right on your wall or into the corner of a duct. It's very controlled. That's a little more higher capacity. That's something you're going to use in homes that, maybe have, they're either in a very, very cold climate, or, they have just a massive footprint, 3,500, 5,000 square feet, something like that. You're definitely going to want to go to a steam unit at that point. They're also effective. As I said, we mostly think of humidity as a problem in the north when we're heating, but there's arid climates in this country where it is dry all the time. When you get out to the arid west, and you should be humidifying there. Dry air is not only bad when it's cold outside. Dry air is bad, regardless. So steam humidification also allows us to introduce humidity into homes where there is no heating call, which is another advantage of it. Haven't seen a huge uptick on that yet. My personal opinion on it is I think, some people that live out in those climates have just gotten kind of used to it. I guess we can all get used to being uncomfortable sometimes. I suppose I've gotten used to, having my nose turn purple when I get the mail. So that's just the way it works. But I do think there's a story there, that we can manipulate humidity in those climates, even when there's not a heating call. So what's the other side of this? So that's what we're doing when we're adding humidity. That's how we're handling it when it's too dry. When it's too moist, which we've also heard is one of the most hated words in the English language is moist. So, but when the air is too moist, we have the ability now to condition it. And, there's a belief that air conditioners handle this, and to a certain extent they do. But without getting super technical here, you've got latent load and you've got sensible load, and they're not the same thing. A dehumidifier will take its sole purpose is to remove that moisture from the air, where the air conditioner's sole purpose is to change the temperature of the air. They do it in a very similar way. It's a similar process, but again, they were designed with different goals in mind, and that comes to using the right tool for the job. So if you have extremely high amounts of humidity in the air, especially air that you're bringing into the house, perhaps through ventilation, you're going to want to treat that with something that was made to lower the RH of the air. And if you're doing that intelligently in conjunction, with cooling calls, you can still maintain some energy efficiency with that while creating, an environment that's much more healthy and much more comfortable than just, setting the air conditioner to 64 degrees to get the humidity out, which doesn't make it more comfortable, because now you haven't really gotten rid of the humidity, but you have lowered the temperature. And the correlation between temperature and health is, 72 degrees and, 45% humidity is actually going to be a lot more comfortable than 62 degrees and 55% humidity. At that level, you're going to be cold and clammy. That's not that's not comfortable. And that's where temperature and humidity kind of work together to get us to the zone where we really feel the best. So, again, it's a little more complicated than you would think. It doesn't seem like adding or removing moisture from the air would be that difficult, but there really is a number of different variables you need to take into account there.
Yeah, so it seems like just adjusting the relative humidity by 20% means that you can adjust your temperature by 10%, which means that you're saving quite a bit of energy. And I don't really think people understand that. You're not, the thermostat for the most part does its job. It gets the temperature of the air to a set temperature and then it stops. But if the humidity isn't quite controlled, you might not be comfortable. So
Yeah.
it's conditioning the air, but it's not necessarily making it comfortable for you. And that's where adjusting the humidity makes a big difference. So
Yeah.
you kind of need that air conditioner along with the dehumidifier, unless your thermostat is smart, because some of the thermostats that you guys that do have controls for this that integrates with the thermostat, you're able to do a little bit of both. So it can actually kick on to, through your HVAC system to adjust the humidity as well.
Yeah. And, and again, it's important that we embrace all that technology as opposed to, just oversizing all of our systems to deal with humidity.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I mean, the solutions are out there. We need to be smart about the design of the home so that we're using, the right tool for the job. And, particularly as you get, we're building in some very high humid climates now. If you look at where a lot of the building is going on, I mean, when you get down, obviously where you guys are, Georgia, Florida, certainly the coastal parts of Texas. I mean, these are not areas where we believe you should be building without doing something to manage that humidity that's coming into the home.
Well, and when you oversize the system, it doesn't run long enough. It gets to that temperature faster. However, it doesn't have enough time to properly cycle out the humidity in the air. So that's something builders do incorrectly, which, we definitely recommend sizing the equipment for the conditions of the house, adding the humidity controls for maximum comfort. Because everyone says hey, it's about energy efficiency. No, it's not. I mean, it's not about energy efficiency at all. Because if we really cared about energy efficiency, we would just we'd take cold showers and turn the HVAC system off.
Exactly.
But then we'd be uncomfortable and we'd be miserable. So it's about human comfort, and how can we create this human comfort in an efficient manner? And that's where all these systems come together, and they have to work in conjunction in a whole house approach, which is obviously what you guys do and recommend.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll add, as you said earlier, if you're watching this in 2025, we'll remind you that there's been quite a pandemic going on right now as we're recording this in 2020, and that's actually brought humidity into the discussion a little bit. Especially when the virus first started, when the pandemic first began, there were some questions about, hey, is summer going to knock this out? Is it going to bring it down? Some of that is because people are, outside more and not in close quarters indoors. But a huge part of it was most viruses are less infective in higher humidity environments. So, that did kind of resurrect the conversation about, in these drier environments, particularly in the winter, the importance of, controlling that humidity, keeping it around 50%, because, these viruses, they're not more infective because they get some superpower from the dry air. It's because they hang in that air longer. When we've got moisture in the air, these particles attach to that and they tend to fall to the ground much quicker. So, that's how humidity does also play a role in virus control. So, as we've talked about before, humidity along with ventilation and purification, you need a little bit of everything to conquer these problems.
Yeah, and if you stay within that 40 to 60% or 40 to 55%, our bodies are also our immune system's able to fight some of these off a little bit better. So when you have those lower especially in the Northeast or northern climate zones, you've got lower humidity and you're going to be sick because not because of the viruses, they stay around longer, but your immune system also has to fight harder because it needs that moisture, just to live. And that's what most people don't realize. I did notice that, because people say that comfort zone, and I do like the fact that you mentioned that is between 30 and say 50%. I kind of feel they skewed that because in the Northeast, you have so many houses or in the northern climates that are really leaky. And it's nearly impossible if you have a leaky house to even with humidity control to get it up to that 30% with it constantly coming out. So they say, hey, 30% is optimal, but really 40%. So if you had a tighter house, 40% is achievable and really is optimal. If you have a leaky house, yeah, be happy with 30% because it could be 5%.
I'm very glad you brought that up. The other thing that does come in, sometimes is, you can get sweaty windows if you've got that, too much moisture when the temperature outside is too cold. And as you may know, I mean, we have automatic controls that will particularly adjust for that. So, there are times we're going to give you, our controls will give you the most humidity that is safe to introduce to the home. It might not always be that 40%. If it's minus 15 outside, we're going to be happy that we got you to 25 or 30%. Again, it's those other ones, as you say,
Exactly.
the target's moving. We want to bring it up, and because you can get 10% humidity in your home if it's cold enough outside and you're doing enough heating.
So, well, this is all very interesting. I really appreciate you tackling both topics, dealing with humidity and dehumidification. These are very important to the occupants of the house and to our health in general, and especially combating some of these viruses that we're dealing with right now. We've got some additional information on this in the comments below. So if you look at Aprilaire not only deals with dehumidification, humidification, just whole house humidity control, also deals with ventilation, which is very important, and also filtration. So basically anything that you can think of that has to deal with air, that's what they deal with. That's part of their name, is Aprilaire. So thanks again, Joseph. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, if you enjoy this, give us a thumbs up. And we've also loaded up some additional videos off to the right on the same subject. And hit the subscribe button along with the bell to get notifications. So as we talk more about building science and tackle subjects like these, you'll get instant notifications to your YouTube account. Thanks again. See you guys next time.